What's up guys, this is Rudy from Pro Civic. Today we're going to walk you through the process of installing our Skunk2 cold air intake for the 9th Gen SIs. This is a 2015 model we're working on today, and overall this is one of the most popular installations or upgrades of cold air intake. So we went with the Skunk2 on this one, and we're just going to walk you through the process of installing this intake. Should be an easy job. Pretty much anybody out there should be able to do this after watching this video. So let's get started. Alright, so one of the first steps, or well actually right off the bat, what you're going to want to do is remove the battery. You're going to disconnect the terminals, this harness hold down, I believe it's a 10 millimeter. You're just going to want to screw that. The tie down, a couple more 10 millimeters, and then the tray, that's going to give us access to the tray, which we also need to remove. Along with that, we're going to want to remove the stock intake and air box. Just a bunch of 10 millimeters scattered. There's one down at the bottom, two bushings in the back that you just kind of pull up on and it'll come loose. These hose clamps here, and this spring clamp here for your evap or crankcase ventilation. So overall, just a bunch of little 10 millimeter screws. I'm going to show you through how to remove all this stuff. So as you can see, I got most of this stuff off. It's very straightforward. For the top portion of the air box, you saw me undoing the clip for the mass airflow sensor. Pretty simple. You just undo that, undo the little hold down, and then remove the top portion, remove the air filter. There's going to be a 10 millimeter screw towards the front, kind of where the battery tray area is. Undo that, and then you're going to pry on the back of the air box to release the bushings back here. We have all these steps laid out in our engine installation video, so if you want to check out the engine intake video, we'll provide a link to that section of the install. But it's all very straightforward. I also took off these two 12 millimeter screws to start removing the battery tray, and yeah, we're going to continue with two 10 millimeters here. A couple of 12s in the bottom, which are really hard to see, but there's going to be one on either side. So, if you look around in there, you'll be able to see what you need to take off. Alright, so at this point I'm just going to remove this lower tube, and in a moment here I'm also going to remove a 10 millimeter bolt that holds down the rest of the resonator. Alright, so now that we're done with the upper portion of the stock intake removal, we're going to go to the last bit down here. Now you notice that I have the car lifted up, so that really helps with gaining access to this last bolt. It's behind this fender liner. You could easily access it if you take off the front bumper, but that's just a little bit more work. I'm going to show you a quick and easy way that hopefully you can do yourself. It does take some skill and specialized, just shorter tools really, shorter socket. And to start, you're going to remove these push clips. There's one right in this corner, another one in there. So you'll see it right in there. Once you have the car jacked up, you'll be able to access this bolt. So let's get started. You're going to start by pulling off the inner fender liner and trying to get access to that bolt. All right, so this second bolt we're going to take off is pretty easily reached. You just need a little bit of a longer extension. It's not as hard to get to, and that's going to take off a little kind of the resonator tube that goes up to the passenger compartment. So just a little tube we need to take off, and then we'll be able to continue with the removal of the stock intake. So now that we have this removed here, you're going to undo the rubber grommet or the rubber hose section. Undo that, we'll be able to remove this tube. All right, so now that we have the last few bolts out of the way, I actually folded the lower portion of the fender liner right underneath the bumper. Folded it down so that way we have room underneath. We're just going to push this air ducting through going down. It might take a little bit of force. You might have to get underneath there and kind of play around with it, but you'll be able to get that off without any real issues. So now that we got this air ducting off, I can show you where this hidden bolt is, and it's located right here. So this kind of drops down, and as you can see, this is the first bolt we took off. This is the second one that's kind of hidden. So you're going to want to look for it underneath. You have to feel around there when you're in the fender well. And one thing I found out right now when taking this off is if you take off the wheel, it gives you a lot more room to play with. You won't really have to struggle with it as much. So other than that, the stock air intake system is completely removed. We're just going to go ahead and start putting on the Skunk2 intake. All right, so the next step is basically installing the mount or the relocation for the battery tray. It comes with its own battery tray, so you're just going to have to kind of hold the engine up. You're going to jack it up at the transmission because you're going to be unbolting 3 of the main bolts for the transmission mount. There's nothing to worry about. It's pretty standard, and there's really no risk of kind of ruining anything. Once you remove those 3 bolts, you'll be able to place the new battery tray in there, torque everything down. And one thing to note is one of the bolts is behind the ECU here. So we're going to remove that, just a quick 10mm bolt there, and then we're going to get access to those 3 17mm hex head bolts. It does help to undo this clip here for the battery cables, and since the ECU is not powered by anything right now, you could also disconnect it and get it completely out of the way. Totally optional. So now that I placed the jack underneath, you can see kind of where I located it. It's pretty simple. You just want to support the weight of the transmission and the engine before you completely remove these bolts. So these bolts are broken loose. I have the jack underneath now, holding everything up. I'm just going to remove the 3 bolts and start putting on the new battery tray. All right, so I took off the 3 bolts now, and it seems like it's going to be a little bit easier to just take off the ECU in order to place the new battery tray. So you just have these 3 connectors here. And to show you guys, these connectors, they're pretty easy to take off. They have a bit of a double locking mechanism. They have this clip in the middle that you push down on, and at the same time you want to pull back on this little lever. You're going to want to do that. These 2 come off together. This 3rd one, it's on its own. And once you do that, this plastic piece is part of the kind of the ECU bracket or housing. And there's just a little tab towards the front. Pull down on it and you're going to push the bracket away, and that'll pretty much release it there. And now we have a lot more room, so easier to work with to get the battery tray on. All right, so this next step is going to consist of relocating one of the negative battery cables. Basically, it's located up at the front, kind of by the radiator support. It's really easy to see if you just follow this cable here. And we're going to locate it on the lower bracket here, lower bolt for this brake master cylinder reservoir bracket. What Skunk2 recommends is reusing the bolt from this side. So we're going to go ahead and get rid of this one once we take that one off. And there may be a different way to route this. You know, you might route this behind where the ECU is going to go, or in front. In this case, we're just going to route it in the front. Pretty sure that'll work out well for us. Also, we do have this clip here that we want to get rid of. We could just take that off in the meantime. Maybe reuse it later to keep it a nice clean install. All right, so now that we have this ground cable relocated, we're going to drop the battery in, put the factory tie down on it. We're going to have to remove the nuts from those little hangers. You can't really hook it in like the factory one. They have like a specialized vertical hook. This one just has a straight hole, So we're going to have to remove the nut, disassemble the tie down, put it on there. Other thing we're going to do is disconnect this this connector here from the negative terminal, and we're going to extend these wires. I'll show you that in a moment once I have the battery put in place. All right, so now we're pretty much ready to rewire this. We're gonna add the 18-inch wires on there. And this is gonna help extend this to wrap around and come up to the new location for the negative battery terminal. I'm gonna be using our own white wires just to make it easier for you guys to see. But Skunk2 does supply these along with their butt connectors. Once you're done, you wanna make sure any electrical connections, you have them wrapped up either with tape or maybe heat shrink. But yeah, overall pretty straightforward. I'm going to show you how to do this right now. It's just a matter of removing this stock loom, stripping the wires a little bit, putting the butt connectors in place, and routing everything through. Now, notice the way I set this up for myself was I went ahead and made the extension piece first, the last bit of this harness. I want to be able to kind of do this without having to work inside the engine bay. You know, you could really do it either way you like, but once you have it like this, you just want to make sure you connect the proper wires to their appropriate matching color on the other end. You're just going to grab the butt connector with your crimpers, and I already have these down here stripped, so just hook up the white wire to the white wire. By white wire I mean this wire, and the green to the white wire. No, I'm just kidding. The green to the green. So put that on there. You're all set. One last thing we found when trying to route this to the negative terminal, there's a little zip tie down here. You can't see it in the camera, but it's where this is kind of held back. If you free that up, if you loosen it up or just cut it, it'll give you enough slack to then be able to more easily route it through to the negative terminal. All right, next step is going to be kind of rerouting the battery cable terminal and also removing the breather tube. With the removal of the breather tube, keep in mind you will maybe drip a little bit of coolant. You want to do this when the engine is cooled down. You don't want to do this after a hard run at, down at the racetrack or whatever. So you're going to grab your little barb fitting here to join the two coolant lines after you remove the breather tube. But first, let's start off with the terminal here. You're going to disconnect the clip here that's holding everything back. It's a little one-wire clip. It has a little tab here that you just kind of push down on, and then a harness holder. It has a tab that you lift up on, and then you're going to pull back. And you can see here this clip right there. If you can kind of see it, that's when you lift up. You lift up on that, pull away from the radiator support, it'll free it up. So we got that out of the way. Let's move on to this. All right, so we're pretty much ready to start installing the cold air intake here. We're going to start off by swapping over the MAF sensor to our new intake. You can see I already have the MAF housing on this intake pipe. It just kind of facilitates things a little bit, especially for the next step. We're going to put the elbow, this pipe in place, and put the lower pipe portion as well. There's also a mounting bracket that's included. It's going to go with a rubber isolator mount down below here. You'll see the hole. You can't see it right now in this camera angle, but once you're in here, you'll be able to see it pretty easily. So again, just going to swap this over. Just two Phillips head screws are holding it down. Put it on the new cold air intake, and we'll start installing the intake piping. So after messing around with the intake a little bit, trying to locate it properly, finally got a pretty good mounting of this. Really sturdy. Nothing's gonna come off. You want to make sure all the clamps are on there nice and tight, and nothing's gonna fall off. And I also did put the air filter on. Next step is basically going to be hooking up your breather hose, which is going to go from here to your factory location, and also extending the wires for the mass airflow sensor. Pretty much the same procedure as extending the wires for the negative battery connector. Just gonna do that real quick. Should be pretty straightforward and easy to do at home. So that pretty much does it for the intake install. Finish up that little breather hose. I used the OEM clamp actually, just to give it a little bit of a cleaner look, more OEM looking. Put the ECU back in, hook up, I believe it's the starter signal wire. We had disconnected earlier. Pretty straightforward. You can see I just cut some of the tape away from the harness. That'll give you enough slack on that wire to hook it back up. Also, up here at the battery terminal, I took away some of the plastic covering here, and it gives it a little bit more wiggle room. It's easier to kind of locate the wire once you have the battery installed. Other than that, you know, just tidy up your fender liner or your bumper if you decided to go that route. For this installation, you're ready to start it up. Start it up, make sure there's no leaks, watch your coolant, watch your temps, and you know, go out there and get a tune. It's highly recommended to get a tune when doing an intake like this. It'll keep your engine running optimally and definitely give you the best horsepower gains. Overall, a great intake to install, really simple. I hope you enjoyed this video, and definitely if you have any comments or questions, leave them down below. We'll catch you next time.